Hello there, welcome back to my channel, it's James here, I hope you're doing okay. So, look at this gorgeous leaf. I put this here because I've been a little bit obsessed with it for the last week or so as it's been kind of unfurling. This is a no ID anthurium that I got from our department last year. Well, yeah, before Brexit. But it is just incredible as it's maturing, like really, really beautiful. I've seen ID'd anthurium that have similar leaves, but then none of them have been like this lime green and this textured, and it's super, super velvety. Not fully hardened, so it might get a little bit bigger, but I think we've pretty much reached the peak. And the pot is just full of roots, so it needs a little repot. Anyway, that's not what we're doing today. What I'm going to do today is just show you an update, and I'm just treading on them now, show you an update on two of my grow walls, my moss walls, one of which I made in a video a little while ago, sort of trying to talk through the basics of how I made this moss wall. And like I said at the time, they're very, very basic. There's nothing fancy about these at all. I haven't got any wicking systems, any watering systems. It's literally just mesh with moss in between. And it works really, really well. So basically I'm going to show you the first one, which is my oldest moss wall. I've got four and a bit going, like some smaller ones. I've got 4 going at the moment. I'm going to show you the oldest one first, and it's going crazy, so there's quite a lot for us to look at. And then we're going to go inside the grow tent and show you the second one. And the reason why I can't bring it out is because the majestic that I have growing next to it has rooted into the moss wall, which is unfortunate, and I'm going to have to deal with it at some point. But for now it means that it's kind of stuck where it is, which it has its issues because I can't flush it out, etc. But it also means the majestic's doing super good, so that's fine. Right, should we just get straight into it? So we're going to kind of try and look at everything that's on here, bearing in mind that it is pretty overgrown. So I'm going to have to chop this as well. Already, right at the top here, we have a Philodendron melanochrysum here, which I've already cut back twice and is just, it really enjoys this moss wall. As you can see, it's literally going to fall off. So I might just have to cut that right now. We'll see how it does. And on the other side, I have a Philodendron Gigas. Okay, so Milano has decided it wants to fall out to the side, which was kind of expected because it's been growing up against the side of the grow tent. The Gigas on the other side has kind of done the same thing. The leaves are getting pretty massive. But yeah, I'm gonna have to chop it. Where's a large leaf? This one's a pretty big leaf. Like, it's really enjoying this moss wall. If I pull it back, you can get a sense of like the overall vibe of what's going on. Lots of anthurium leaves doing there. The one in the center, so with the round leaves, it's going to be hard for me to point, is an Anthurium crystallinum, pure crystallinum. The one down below is a Warocqueanum. I'll come in here and you can see that really long, beautiful leaf. And it seems to be getting just the right amount of light because the lower part of this is a little bit hidden behind some other plants. So that plant seems to be doing okay. On this side here, let's lean it back against my shoulder, get nice and intimate with it. On this side here, we have a Philodendron esmeraldens, which rooted into it from the plant below, and I just chopped it and left it there. It's done super, super well. Right, let's get a little bit closer. So up top and center, this is a Philodendron verrucosum type. I don't have a specific ID for it. I just got it as Philodendron verrucosum, but it is not sort of your typical form. It is a little bit sad. It really doesn't like the level of light that it's getting here. So almost all of the leaves come through really beautifully like that, and then they'll turn into those and then sort of fall off. So I have 2 really long stems of this verrucosum that are basically bare, and you can see the caterpillars of both of them there. So they're not enjoying this so much. Philodendron Usheinum, these ones, the sort of bluey pink, this peach color as they come through is really, really gorgeous. They remind me a lot of Philodendron Belmax Fantasy in the leaf texture and color. Really, really nice. Then sneaking along the top here, I've got some Rhaphidophora cryptantha. Sorry, not cryptantha, Sileticorlis. This is very awkward. Got some Rhaphidophora sileticorlis, which is beautiful, which has kind of climbed to the max and is now winding its way back down the back. Over here, I've got Rhaphidophora cryptantha, which has done the same. I had some big bits growing out, but I cut them back to put on another moss wall, and it's just put out a bunch of these vines because it's run out of growing space. So that's kind of to be expected. On this side, which I'm really happy with, I have 2 orchids. I can't remember the IDs, but I do have the little things here, so let me find them. This one up here, which is hidden back behind the Melanochrysum, there, this kind of spidery one, is an Orangus Pioneer, which is lovely. There's obviously some marking from fertilizer. I'm gonna drench this after this. So I take it down every couple of weeks and really fill it in. And this silvery one here is a Phalaenopsis lindenii, which is really, really pretty. It's got kind of splashy silvery leaves, which is pretty. Then we have a bunch of this Dischidia rucifolia variegated, which is, I feel like it really, really fills in a lot of the space. It's trailing all the way down to here. Really, really lovely. It's starting up on this side underneath these leaves, underneath the Gigas. It's so beautiful. Then what else have we got? We've got a bunch of variegated Rhaphidophora, which is really hard to get at because it's kind of growing behind everything. But if I pull you in there, you can see a little bit of the Rhaphidophora, this variegated stuff here, and then also a Belmux Fantasy there. I feel like when you get in, it just gets really, really messy. When you pull out, it starts to look pretty. This has suffered quite a lot this year. It dried out way too much. I think I over-fertilized it at one point. It's a little bit difficult to keep on top of that. And also it's reaching the end of like the space that it has in this moss. Because if I turn it around, there are roots just pouring out of the back. So what I'm gonna do, and I'm not gonna do it on camera because it will be very, very boring. I'm gonna take the mesh apart, I'm gonna add a second layer of moss, so make it a little bit wider, and just seal it in. And hope that that kind of gives things a second lease of life, because obviously things are enjoying it, but space is running out. And I think I said this when I first made the very first one. This isn't like a long-term solution for me. It's like just a fun little project. So I would recommend seeing it as that if you make one yourselves. Right, what I'm going to do actually right now is just chop off these two philodendron because they are frustrating me a little bit. Okay, so hello again, I'm back. So I'm just going to chop these off. I have my knife, which I have sterilized under flame, so I'm just going to chop this and maybe a little bit lower down as well, so it has a tiny bit more space to start climbing in. And then I'll show you this cutting properly. Wow, that's a lot of Gigas. So this is a big bit of Philodendron Gigas. Like I said, the leaves were starting to get pretty substantial. That's like a hand size, which is the biggest I've been able to get Philodendron Gigas in my care. I feel like it's a little bit more reluctant to mature than some of the other Philodendron. It's not super appealing at this point, I feel, because the leaves sort of crumple in, and that's just the growth pattern of this plant. Like it doesn't have like big shield like flat leaves like this, or Melanochrysum or Glorious, so I think it gets a little bit less attention, but it is just like really, really pretty. Yeah, and this new leaf is gorgeous. It has like a very pink sort of red backside. Lovely. So that's a cutting of Gigas that I'm going to deal with in a sec. I'll probably try and keep it all together. And what I do, if I have to take drastic cuttings like this, and I want to try and maintain a little bit of the maturity, I did this with a Milano cutting that I took from this before, is that I will, actually I'll show you on this. I have this plant, and I will obviously place the bottom, and depending on how many roots it has, I'll put those roots into a pot, potentially the first of 2 sets of nodes. And then the nodes up above that have aerial roots, I'll wrap those in a sort of mini air layer. And it's not because I'm going to cut it, it's just to make sure the plant has like as much water and nutrients heading into the growth as possible, so that it continues growing and ideally doesn't lose too much maturity. And just give this a little bit of support as well. So yeah, I'll show you at some point in the future, but I will pot this up, base in a pot, wrap all of these nodes, because they have really, really juicy aerial roots, in some moss or some air layers, and then I will hopefully keep this going. Second one is this Milano, and here we have the little Melanochrysum, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the same thing, because for some reason these lower nodes have very, very little aerial root growth. So I might cut these 2 base nodes off into separate nodes and then root from here on up, because there is some lovely maturity still there. Like, not so much here. I feel like it was realizing that it had lost a bit of support, but it's still a very, very nice cutting. It's also not like, I don't know exactly what's happening, but some of these plants on the moss wall, I think it might be an over-fertilization issue, are getting some little blotches on the leaves. So I might just grow it out a little bit first. Anyway, 2 cuttings there, and then one last look at this moss wall before I take it and give it a little soak. It is pretty spectacular. If you have a space to grow these, I mean, really, really beautiful. Obviously, because it's open, I've said this before, particularly in the one where I made the moss video, like, because it's so open, there's so much airflow, this wouldn't work very well in an open house space. Like, for example, if I had it hung on this wall here, one, it would mark the wall massively because the moss would seep back, but also it would just dry out too quickly. So you have to have, I think this will only work in a cabinet or in a very, very humid environment like a greenhouse or a grow tent. So yeah, that's a look at the first one. I'm going to pop in the tent, show you the second one, and then, yeah. This is the second moss wall, and I'm stood basically as far back as I can to get as much of it in frame as possible, but there are loads of plants and shelves behind me, so this is as close, as far back as I'm going to get. It has a pallidiflorum hanging in front of it, which I'm going to kind of shift to the side, and then hopefully we can have a little look at what's going on. And I'll break things down bit by bit as we go through. Maybe let's start over to this side. Like I said, there's a big old majestic rooted into this moss wall, which has been really nice for the growth up above, but yeah, it means I can't move the moss wall for now, which is a bit frustrating. Right here, that glossy leaf and this new one that's coming out here, this is a Monstera obliqua SP Amazonas, which is climbing and doing great, and it's the only segment of this plant that I've been able to grow without it vining, so obviously a moss wall is the way to go. Then here we have a Rhaphidophora foraminifera, which has a little bit of damage on the leaf, which I think it looks like thrips, but I can't find any thrips, and I've treated it very, very recently, so it might just be some funky fungus bacteria. There are a lot of things it could be. I'm hoping it's not thrips, because that would be frustrating. Then I've got a Magravia. This is Magravia centenicii, I think. I forget that unless I have it written down, but it is growing beautifully, and the colours on it are just, I feel like, super, super pretty. So obviously lower down the older leaves are green, but as you reach the top they go through like this orange right up to this pinky red at the very tip. Super pretty. Then on the wall there is this Polyneura silva, which has actually got a second growth point coming through there, which is nice, and it's grown all the way out to here, so safe to say it's pretty happy on this wall. The silver leaves are really, really pretty. I had a regular Polyneura, which I no longer have because I sort of left it behind when I moved, but yeah, I think I prefer this one. It's definitely not my favourite Hoya, but yeah, it's nice. Like this, it's pretty. Then this is a really recent addition. It's just a node of an Archipelago, Ansoni Archipelago ghost that I just stuck in the wall because I didn't have anywhere to put it. Also a recent addition, a little bit of Belmax Fantasy, same thing, just a node that I had lying around, so I stuck it in there. And this is why the wall is going to get so overcrowded like the other one over time. At the bottom, really, really happy actually, is a Philodendron bicolor. The light is way too bright. This happens to bicolor all the time when I have it in too high light. I'll just show you quickly where is the nearest bicolor. In decent light, in light that's good for the bicolor, they kind of stay this color. But yeah, this happens here. It's already happening on this new leaf, but they're still really, really pretty. The red to the back is lovely. This is not a mosaic virus or anything like that, don't worry. But it's growing very, very fast because of the highlight in part. But yeah, I will definitely try and move this moss wall somewhere a little bit lower because there are a few plants on here that are getting too much light. That's the top leaf of the previous Milano that I cut off that other moss wall that I just did. Then here, this beautiful, beautiful philodendron is a Philodendron Hederaceum oxycardium variegated. Anyway, variegated Hederaceum. I forget the specific cultivar name, but really nice. I got this as a single node cutting and it's doing super good. Really pretty, and this leaf is pretty big too. Really interesting variegation. Next to that, right, actually here we've got the Dischidia platyphila, I think last time I did this I called it the Dischidia imbricata, but I don't think it is that. I didn't have an ID when I got it, but I think it's platyphyla.
Then there is a larger Belmax Fantasy, which is growing from down there. That was the node that it started with, that teeny thing. And it's doing okay. Again, slightly too bright light, so it needs to move. Another one getting too much bright light is this Anthurium, this beautiful Anthurium. This is a Forgetii Magnificum Crystallinum hybrid, and it's got a new leaf coming through now. But it doesn't really come across on camera, but it is so velvety. And like there's really sort of chunky, round leaves, which is nice. Then I think this is almost it. We've got the Rhaphidophora cryptantha back there, which is just kind of background filler. And at the bottom, this Patricii, which I have knocked the growth point off 3 times, which is why it has barely grown since I put it on. It should have 3 more leaves than this, but it doesn't. So it's just growing back from a node. And yeah, that's basically it. Kind of get as much of it as possible in. Oh wait, there's a tiny orchid here. I don't know if we'll be able to see. That leaf there is part of a sort of thin vining orchid that kind of died back, but now it's coming out again, that I got as a gift from a friend. I can't remember the name of it though. So yeah, that is the moss wool. Doing really, really well. In a couple of months more, it will be very, very full, probably too full, and I'll have to start cutting. Yeah, this philodendron in particular, now that it's gotten going, within a couple of months, that will be at the top of the moss wool for sure. All right, there you go. That's the second one. A little update for those of you who wanted it on the growth since I made this moss wool. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions, stick them down in the comments below. If you want to see updates on all these plants, check out my Instagram. I post there pretty regularly. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see more like this.